Today's question is quite interesting because we're going to look at operation security. And this is taken from a real-life environment. You find out that a confidential system has been compromised due to the fact that you found a suspicious file called hacker.log in a directory. What is your first step? A. Remove the file and ensure production. B. Isolate the system and take a system backup. C. Shut the system down. D. Log an incident on the incident system. Now, first and foremost, if it's a confidential system, we don't know here if it's criticality, what data is included there, and how long it's been compromised. We can't shut the system down. Definitely, I'm going to try and do a process of elimination, shutting the system down. We have no idea if it's really production environment. We cannot just remove the file and ensure production because then we don't know if there's any backups or dependency on other systems. So the two answers that actually is left behind is to either isolate the system and take a system backup, or D, log an incident in the incident management system. What you need to do in a question like this, for example, is to understand the process. We can isolate the system and take system backup, but if we do have a possible compromise, this has to be logged in the incident and the incident system, because then we'll actually have the incident response team or the computer emergency response team being able to take actions and document the system for in case there's any legal requirements, etc. I'll go quickly through some of the content found in a site that was definitely hacked, and just to show you the actual destruction that administrators or users have got access to a system that actually does not follow procedure and policy, for example, the acceptable use policy. We've got a site, it's a government site, which we have worked with in a sense to make sure that they are notified. This site was hacked more than 2 years before it was actually discovered. And what has happened actually is that the FTP user was an anonymous FTP user with full read-write capabilities. Now, if this site was for 2 years in the open, first thing that should have been happened is to take a backup of the logs. If you had logs, to take a backup to see who's had access to the site and what data they could get. But let's look at a couple of directories. I've made sure that I kept files that are compromised and actually hacking tools for remote users. If we go into one of the directories, here's 2011, and as we can see, it says raise data recovery for FAT version 5.10.1 and also for NTFS, and both these systems have got keygens installed. Now the keygen here, what you need to do is actually upload that, if you don't have a clue what is going on, to upload those to virustotal.com, and that will give you the content if the file is actually a threat. Now the first one is keygen.exe. As you can see here, 40 of the 68 engines running on virustotal.com has picked up that this is a suspicious file. And as you can see, it's Trojan. Some define its crypt, which is ransomware usually. So as you can see, highly contagious as far as I'm concerned, and not trusted, of course, at all. Now that was the first one we actually found, and the second one, when we look at AMS, another directory here, and under pages, we found two files. So one error log. Now that was also picked up as being suspicious, and what you need to do is look at the content of these files. Never double click. You need to make sure you actually also run the investigation and forensics on a system that's not connected to the internet, of course, and not connected to your actual network. So hopefully it's a sandbox system, totally separated, air-walled from the rest of the network. So right-clicking, I actually use Notepad++. This allows me to look at the content of the file very easily, and also much larger and manageable compared to normal Notepad. Of course, this is running in Windows. Here I see immediately that the first two characters is MZ. Now MZ is usually an executable file. An executable file starts with MZ. That's the indication, or how you can actually visually look for that. Then further on it says this program cannot be run in DOS mode, so it's a Windows application. And then later what we'll see is here 3.91 UPX. So this application is compressed. So if we look at the compressed file, and this is executable compressor, which normally hackers use, or virus writers, malware writers use to compress a file so it's not detected. So it's smaller to actually upload or remotely install to a system, and it also hides some of the content of the file, although antivirus software will pick it up. Now, once we've had a look at that, let's actually submit that file to virustotal.com, and what we see is the following. It actually picks it up as Windows 7 and 8 Ultimate Keygen. Of course, a key generator. And now this is a government site, so the users are actually using key generators for Microsoft Windows, which is also against copyright law. As you see, again, this is malware, and some of them see it as crypt mod, which is also again ransomware. So really a high risk within an environment. And then finally, if we look at the last file here, this is error 404.php. So 404 is of course a file not found, and what the guy's trying to do normally is actually replace a file within an environment. So if you have a 404 PHP and you're running a PHP site, anybody coming to visit your site will open that file, and what will happen, if we look at the content of that file, is of course a PHP file, and what that does, it looks at the content of the remote system, sees for its access, and tries to write a file. First test.txt, and then the content. And if we look at the content, at the bottom of this file here, it is base 64 encoded, so it has to be decoded. So if we take that file and we decode that file, it is another backdoor Trojan in this application. And this file is actually called PHP web shell.mbs. Now it's a Trojan which has capabilities for remote users to connect to your system, perform a denial of service from your system, or even a distributed denial of service. It can capture your keyboard inputs, delete files or objects, and terminate processes. So as you can see, taking from this point of view, this environment highly infected, and the idea here is once this is infected, and if we look at other places as well, user control, that was also infected, still under AMS pages 404. When we look at central, another error log, another virus again. So this system is highly infected all over the area, and here we need to make a decision what to do. We cannot trust the system, we don't know who's been into the system, and we do not have any idea, depending on the logs that are there, of who has taken the data using unauthorized methods and distributed elsewhere. So the answer here is D, log an incident on the incident system, and the next step will be to isolate the system and take a system backup.